I can't believe what a good sized group we have here. I thought Friday coming to lunch, a cold day like today, might be a limited crowd. Wonderful, just wonderful. So, this is called building your tool belt. And I'll explain as we go through what I mean by that. I love masks, by the way. That's not working. Sweet. All right, improvise. Yeah, it was working earlier. That's much better. Okay. No problem. No problem. We had it working earlier. Okay, now it's working. All right. Without further delays, let's go. Because I'm wearing a mask, that's theoretically what I look like. So imagine as I give my speech, that's the face behind this beautiful mask. I gotta warn you, there's gonna be a quiz at the end. Not saying it's hard, but there will be a quiz. The quiz is, what's the most important part of business? I would actually say life. What type of leadership do I try to live by and practice? What is the number one mistake made in communication? And at the end, hopefully you'll know what the purpose of the speech was. You're sitting there going, all these delays, where are we going? First question, if I were sitting there, I'd be asking, who is this guy? Why is he here? And WIFM. I don't know if you've all heard of WIFM or not, but we all participate in WIFM. That's what's in it for me. You didn't come here to benefit me, you came here to benefit yourself. So what I'm going to talk about here is a long and winding road of my career and things I've learned along the way, and perhaps things that you can take after this is all done and take forward and use it yourselves. Massive sliding here. It's been a long and winding road, building my tool belt. See the tool belt analogy here. So what's my background, just so you kind of get level set where I am? I've spent my entire career in business, primarily focused in operations, supply chain. I've done everything from hourly work to be a corporate officer, to be a member of boards, etc. When I mean hourly worker, I mean the person who's walking in fields, cutting out weeds, those kind of hourly work. I've been responsible at different times in my career for end-to-end supply chains, operations, manufacturing, logistics, quality, safety, customer service, planning, purchasing, engineering, all those type of things. I've also had the opportunity to do other things. I've had leadership roles in process design and implementation, continuous improvement, actually building for a $28 billion company their supply chain strategy, and SAP business process implementation. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. I also have experience in private equity with my own consulting firm, and also now I work as an adjunct educator. I have a Bachelor of Science, Industrial Engineering from Iowa State University. That's on the other side of the Appalachians. It's in that middle part of the country a lot of people aren't always aware of, but it's about dead center in the middle of the U.S., in Ames, Iowa. And I got an MBA from Western Illinois University. So here's some of the products throughout my career I've been involved in various ways, from everything from being involved with the systems, being involved with their operations, the actual acquisition of some of these businesses. Some of the more interesting things are like, see that Wolfgang Puck up there? When I was working on that, working in Canada, working with Wolfgang Puck, actually got to know the gentleman a little bit. Interesting guy. Very smart businessman, do not underestimate him. Realized late one night, riding back with him in a limousine, that he was really sharp, really sharp guy. So this long and winding road, and building a tool belt. Again, I'm talking about that tool belt idea again. I haven't explained what the tool belt's about yet either. The tool belt idea was something that happened to me at one point in my career. I was an engineer working in a plant, and we had the opportunity to have the board of directors come to our plant and have one of their board meetings. And I was just maybe a year or two out of college. And my job, the VP of operations said, Brett, we need to have a nice place to have the board meeting. We need to fix up one of our conference rooms and decorate it, and get all new furniture, and get a nice table for them to meet at, AV equipment, and all these things. I go, okay, I'll do that. Don't really know how to do that, but I'll do that. And he goes, no, go do it. So I worked on it. I started working on it, and partway through the project, late one day I went in and gave him an update of where we were on the project. I said to him, I appreciate you giving me the project, but I'm an engineer, okay? And this is a little bit about style and choosing chairs and the fabrics and all these things. This is not what I'm necessarily really geared for. And really, you're paying an engineer to do this. You need a design guy to do this. He said, he gave me a little speech as he did a few times. He goes, because you know what? As you go through life, everything you do, every experience you have, is a tool in your tool belt. And you don't realize at the time if it's going to be a tool, or you can use it again, not use it again. You don't know. But that tool is going to go into your tool belt. And someday, something's going to come along, you're going to reach for that tool. You're going to find that tool. You reach that belt, and you won't maybe even remember you have it, but all of a sudden you'll have that tool. I thought, well, that's interesting. He's trying to get me to go back to work. You know, don't worry about it, go back to work. I learned later that was profound. Because I found later in my career, things I had done that seemed completely unrelated, not useful at all. I'd be in a situation and I'd have a solution. I'd have that tool. And they go, wow, how did you come up with that? I had a tool in my tool belt. Simple as that. I had the experience. So as you go through life, you're building your tool belt. So here's a little bit about how this all works. I grew up on a farm in the Midwest, near a small town. When I say small town, I mean a town of less than 500. And it was near, I wasn't in the town. Pretty rural. In 5th grade, I had a revelation. I was going to be an astrophysicist. That was my future. That was the direction. That was the direction my path was going. And I stuck to it. And I loved everything about it. I watched people like Carl Sagan, all these people loved it. That's where I'm going. So I went to college to get a physics degree. Sophomore year, I had a revelation. I didn't want to be a scientist. I started changing the direction of my career. I didn't want to be a scientist. And the moment that really hit me, I was sitting in I was taking my second year of physics, which is modern physics and things like that. We do relativistic effects and all those type things. Wonderful stuff to make your brain crazy. Dream, the weirdest dreams, where you play with gravity in your brain. But I was sitting there in a lab, sitting in the front row, and I told a pretty good physics joke. Let's be honest, there's not a lot of good physics jokes. And it was pretty funny, I thought. And there was no reaction in the room. I couldn't hear anything behind me. I thought, well, I made a joke, you know? So I looked around the room, and a lot of them were sitting there going, you can't see my face, but I'm kind of smiling here. They liked the joke. I said, okay, this is not the world for me. I need a more dynamic world. These are great people, wonderful people, brilliant people. But it wasn't the right environment for me. I need to get into the application side. I need to be on the dynamic side, not on the academic side for me. Be more into the real world, for lack of a better way to put it. That was my next revelation. So what I do, I got a degree in engineering, and then after I went to work for a while, I got an MBA because I said, you know what, I need an MBA. So I changed direction a little bit on my path. Then, as an engineer, hired as an engineer, I had another revelation. They gave me an opportunity to be a production supervisor on a packaging floor. I said, I got out there and I go, this is it. This is the direction I want to go. I changed my path. I go, I love this. Just absolutely loved it. You made stuff, everybody worked together, you had stuff at the end of the day that you had produced as a team. You could be proud of what you were making. Just the whole dynamic of the environment, you had the problem solved. It was great. That's the direction. I don't want to be an engineer as much as I really want to be in the fight, on the ground. The revelation really told me I wanted to lead, I really wanted to lead. I saw other people's success as my success. That was really huge for me, to really see it as not my success, but the success of the organization, the group I'm with. And to me, it is what I would sometimes call stewardship, which is taking care of the people, taking care of the company or whatever. But, you know, it was this principle that people are the most important part of the business. And that's on the quiz. If you ever take one of my classes too, you'll know the one first answer to every quiz, people. Because what's the most important part of the supply chain? What's the most important business? What's the most important part of life? The people. And you got to just always remember that. Let it drive you. And I call it stewardship, and then later, as years went along, they now call it typically a servant leadership type of approach to management. And it's the idea that as a leader, you serve your people. You make them successful. Their success is your success. You're not out for your glory, You're out for the glory for them. You want them to succeed. When I would talk about my work with people, they say, all you do is you talk about the people. You don't talk about these tens of millions of dollars of projects you're doing. You talk about the people. I said, yeah, well, projects work themselves out. But it's all about the people. It's about seeing people succeed and grow. And, you know, I had so many people who work for me that are now vice presidents and presidents of companies. I go, great, that's success. So when you're born, your tool belt, you're born an empty tool belt. Every day, you're adding something to it or maybe taking something out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I built my tool belt. So after college, I've had a number of positions. I started out in a number of engineering roles initially. As we talked about, production supervisor, which turned out to be really important to me. Then I had the opportunity to become a department manager for the industrial engineering group within the company. And then I became an operations manager. What's an operations manager? Well, this plant I was working in we had about 800 people in the plant, and that job's the number 2 job. So it's kind of like the plant manager, and then you had the ops manager, the way we were set up. So I was in charge of everything but quality and finance, accounting type things. So operations typically in a company will be about 70% of the people, which is great, because I care about the people, and so most of the people in the company end up being under my role to take care of them and be successful. But it fit well. I loved it. It was dynamic. It was exciting. It was great. Then I got a chance to be a plant manager, again of a large plant. At that time, one of the largest plants in a $28 billion company. And in that role, I had everything. I could start doing not only tactics, I could start doing strategy. As a plant manager, you can really start seeing the picture out there at the end. What do you want this workforce? How do you want the workforce to look? How do you want this organization to function? What is your culture? And you can really start moving things, making things happen. Loved it. Then I became a VP. And I had lots of different titles over the years. And sometimes if you get in more corporate situations, weird things happen. Like within one day, I had 3 different bosses. Weird story. In fact, 2 of them at the same time for a while during the day. It's a mess. Things happen, corporates, it's not like in the plant, corporate's different. I had a chance, we acquired a company. It was about $150 million business. We acquired this pizza company, family owned, and I was picked to run their operations. I didn't really know all the things you need to know for running a pizza operations. First of all, not much about the actual processes, and now all of a sudden I was in charge of customer service, and planning, and all these things that I knew not really, I knew theoretically about, but I had no real experience. And I had to kind of learn. It's part of the continuous learning that goes on to your career and risk-taking and stuff. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but I had to change my direction a little bit, and now I'm more of a broad role and had to take on more roles. Loved it. We had multiple plants, 1,500 souls in my responsibility. It was exciting. And we took a company, and we had one big success in there that we started with a 0 business, and in 3 years it was a $70 million business. That was exciting. That's entrepreneurial. It's great. Company changed directions, and they said, well, we're going to configure differently, but we'd like you for the division of our company to run the manufacturing services. Okay. So now I was in charge of engineering and a little different direction. I was kind of like, they gave me more of a person who's not on the front line, more about getting these other groups to help. It's different, but I was over planning and customer service, engineering, things like that. But I wasn't as directly involved in day-to-day plant operations anymore. I kind of moved away from that. Then they go to me and they said, well, we'd like you to take over retail. The title was Retail Supply Chain Systems. Had some bizarre titles a few times. That one actually made sense. What they wanted me to do was start leading an IT group and do supply chain strategy. So here, you're kind of like, okay, I'm not an IT person. We're going to do these multi-million-dollar projects under supply chain, and most of the folks working for me are brilliant IT people. They know how to program SAP configurations. They know how to do all the interface. They know all these things. And it's not inside my knowledge base. And strategy I liked, but what made me a good strategist? It was their faith that I could do it. So I got that, and we did it for that division. And eventually, we rolled it up to the whole company, so at that point, company sales were about $28 billion. I was in charge of supply chain strategy. Now, you're getting kind of removed from day-to-day operations in a dynamic world. But it was exciting, because I would bring people in the company, and we'd come together, and we'd build strategy. And then implement it with SAP and things like that to actually, bring it down. And then I got focused on just fixing plants and ITs in there and stuff. So I did all these things, and they were great. When I took the retail supply chain role, I said, well, where does this lead? Where does this path take me? I mean, okay, I'm getting further from operations, which has been my love, my thing I want to do. I'm going to be so removed. I feel like I'm getting removed. And how does this career path make any sense? And the VP of Ops for that, in that situation, said to me, listen, when this is all done, you're going to know more about all the operations, all the processes, all the people than anybody else. Company. So you're going to have a knowledge that we won't part with because no one else is going to know like you do. And so, okay, makes sense. I'll do it. What he did predict was that a new CEO and chairman would come in and saying, yeah, we're going a different direction. And he came in and he says, all these projects you guys have been working on, we're going to blow it up. And we're going to, we're not going to spend any more money on this. That's not where the company's focused now. That happens. That's going to happen in the real world. So, what happened? They said, well, you need to blow up your department and let my folks, I try to find other places in the company for folks to go. A few did have to depart the company. And then there was me. What are we going to do with me? And they said, well, we could have you work on closing plants. That sounds awful. We had 180 plants in the company. We shouldn't have had that many, but we did. They said, we were benchmarking against Kraft at the time. They had about 80. We had 180. We had about an extra 100, we think. We'd like to close 40 in the next 3 years. So how would you like to be on that team? I go, okay. What other choices do you have? They said, well, you could be on this other team, this other stuff. And I go, okay. I don't think I can contribute to this company anymore. This is not going the direction I want to go. There's nothing here for me at this point. I need to do something different. I need to step away from this. So we parted, we worked on it for a few months, dissolved my team, dissolved my department, and I left happy and with no idea what I was going to do. No idea. So I established a little consulting firm, and what I did is I got tied in with a private equity firm, and I would go in and we did acquisitions, divestitures, turnarounds. I was now more directly involved with some plants and stuff. It was great. It was great fun. But even doing that for a while, I said, you know what? I want to get back in and own it, like I did in operation. I actually want to have ownership. With private equity, you kind of come in, you do your thing, and then it goes to the next thing. So I got a job as a senior vice president of operations, and we got to sit on the boards. We did a lot of acquisitions for a pasta company, which also, it was actually a Spanish-owned company, and pasta and rice, the largest rice company in the world, the second largest pasta builder in the world, and that was great. I did that for many years. That was actually of all the roles I've had, actually the longest. But then it got to a point where circumstances were that it's time for me to do something different. Different place in my life, different things I need to do. And that's where we are today. You know, I'm trying to be an educator and trying to give back, not chasing the titles, the power, whatever you want to do it, what you want to call it, not having, you know, gigantic budgets of $500 million, whatever. That's where I am in my career, and it's about giving back, and that's why I'm here today. So what prepared me for the adventure? What tools did I put in my tool belt along the way? And what helped me along the way to be successful? So I'm trying to give you my lessons learned that hopefully you can apply. Number one thing that's going to impact you, luck. People hate to admit it, but we're lucky. And I was lucky in a lot of ways. I grew up in a stable home and had a good education, and then I got to go to college, which is part of your luck. You get to be here. You get these opportunities. What Warren Buffett calls winning the genetic lottery. You know, in his perspective, he said, I was born in America with all these opportunities. So that's a lot of luck. So there's a lot of luck in this room. I have a lot of luck. I always say I'm the luckiest person I know, but you all have a lot of luck to be here today, too. But luck, it goes a little further than that. There's the expression, chance favors the prepared mind. Louis Pasteur. And what does he mean by that is, you know, luck can be there, but you got to be ready for it. So if you think about it, you walk into, think of this analogy. Opportunity is in a room. It's in this room. And you walk in that room, and you open the door, there's opportunity in there. But if you don't turn the light on first, you're not going to see it. If you don't look around, you're not going to see it. So if you have the mindset, be ready for those opportunities, take advantage of that luck, you're going to do much better. And there's another truth to this thing too. You got to work hard, really. To be honest, it's not something that's popular to say, well, I'd like to do it. You're going to have to work hard. It doesn't happen by accident. But luck is more, I had all these opportunities because I was lucky, but also because I was prepared and I worked at it. And success is more than luck. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to make it happen. So, enough about luck. Here's another truth. You don't do it on your own. It isn't just you creating these careers, the success. I found a lot of mentors, co-workers, leaders who helped me, hopefully sometimes I helped them, to succeed and grow. They took an interest in me, helped me along the way, avoid mistakes, or supported me when I needed it. This guy here, he's the one who gave me the tool belt speech, you know, that I'm using today. He was younger than this old. He was an old guy to me at the time. He was like 34. But you know, Jack was great. I learned a lot from Jack, and Jack didn't even know what he was teaching me. He just did, just by being Jack. This guy, he was my co-worker, and he would have like a year seniority on me. But when I started working, he looked out for me, and he made me more successful. I learned so much from him. He knew how to navigate within the organization. He took a personal interest in me being happy, being successful, and he taught me to get an MBA. He did a lot of things for me that it's invaluable to me to this day. These next three people are actually three people. This thing should be filled with thousands of pictures, honestly. But here's just three people that were part of my team, my last team with the international company. And they worked, technically they reported into me, but their success was my success. They made me better. They made me learn. And all of them now are VPs. So they did okay on their own too. So they got success from me, but I'd be lying. If you're running operations, you're depending on a lot of people to be successful. You don't do it on your own. So we talked about that opportunity idea. You got to stay curious throughout your career. You just can't let it slip away. I always said that I wanted on my gravestone, he was curious. Not sure what that, you can interpret however you want, but you got to keep curious. You got to keep questioning, thinking about stuff, wondering why does that happen? And the thing about curiosity is it keeps you from being judgmental. Because if you keep yourself curious, somebody presents an idea to you, and you think it's dumb, lack of a better word, doesn't make any sense. Don't make the judgment. Think, why did they think that? What's their motivation? Is there something there I'm missing? Because you're going to miss opportunities. This is about the preparation of your mind for luck. You're going to miss opportunities if you dismiss things too quickly. I heard the head of Disney saying one of the reasons he was stepping down a year ago was he noticed that he was starting to dismiss other people's ideas. He said, that's the problem. He said, I knew I've got to change. For the good of the organization, for the good of the people. Continually learn. Every time I had to change directions on this path, I had to learn. I had to learn new things. I had to learn a lot of IT stuff. I learned a lot about SAP. I was sharing this morning, my daughter, who now is out in the working world, was sending me notes yesterday saying, have you ever seen this in SAP? And I'm going, huh. I had a tool in my tool belt, I could help her, you know? So I'm telling her, said, well, check these transactions and this and this. I'm going, gosh, I know a little bit about this. I did not realize those tools were there. Huh. But it's just, you got to keep learning. You just can't stop learning. I took courses a few times on specific subjects, went to special schools like on better processing, things like that were applicable, but interesting. Just stay interested. And the billionaire that helped build Berkshire Hathaway said, if you keep learning all the time, you have a huge advantage. That is so true. Huge advantage. Final one I want to make on this particular set of slides is I adapted. And this gets into adapting, and it also gets into a little bit about being creative. I had to learn how to adapt. Each of these times you get into situations, you got to change it. You guys are going to have to adapt more than I ever did. I'll be honest with you. You're going to have to adapt in ways that I don't have the ability to. And one of the ways I had to adapt was I moved a lot. Hopefully you won't have to do this. Luckily I had a very supportive family, but my wife and I have lived in 11 homes, 12 homes, something like that over the years. And the ones in red are places, states I've lived in, and the green is where I've spent a lot of time. I've also spent a fair amount of time in Europe. But just show you, we kind of jumped around. In fact, lived in one town 3 occasions. Anyway, so you had to adapt. You had to make the decision. Do I want to do it, not do it? Do I want to take that path or not take that path? So I moved for opportunities. That's why I adapted. Then situations come up. Fire. See this plant? It's on fire. It has 60-foot flames coming out of there. Hard to see from this shot. And remember I mentioned I was an operations manager? Yeah, that was a plant. And the middle of it was on fire. And we had ammonia. We were a frozen plant. We had a lot of explosive ammonia in the system. And we had to do a lot of things in a hurry. My office was right there, so I looked out the window and saw the fire. And they all started coming down. I adapted. I learned how to work in the fire department really quickly. We had to build a whole battle plan how to take care of the people. And we had like around 800 people who worked there, and this fire started right at shift changes, a 3-shift operation. So all of a sudden we had 400 people. We had to make sure we knew where the heck they were they safe, and to make sure they're out of the building. And it completely gutted out the middle of that plant. The plant went from the top to the bottom here. It was like 500,000 square feet plant, big plant. And it really hit home how much the community and the people depended on our operations. And through creativity and adapting and a really good, clever boss, we were back in business in 21 days. Now the middle of the building was gone, and I could spend an hour on how we pulled it off, but we did it. We still use the rest of the building. Anyway, you have to adapt. Kind of like that picture. So part of adapting in your career is you have to learn to take chances. Okay, I'm a person who likes to take chances. I have a history of taking a lot of chances, skydiving and bungee jumping and all these type things. But I had to learn to take chances with people, which was not natural to me. Really wasn't comfortable with that. I had to kind of press myself. And each person's going to be different when they talk about taking chances and what they can do. I had to learn that. I had to be willing to look stupid, ask the dumb question. We had people below you that knew much more about it than you do. Ask the question. You can't lead unless you understand. Be willing to look stupid. I was willing to fail. In some ways, you look at someone that has failed a lot of times. And failure partially is a mindset, and part of it is purely failure. You'll fail people, you'll fail organizations, you'll fail. You take chances, you do something's going to happen. But from the failure, you learn, you try to convert to success. I'm naturally a very optimistic person, which is luck of the draw, one of those lucky things. Some people aren't. And I feel sorry for them, honestly, because it's way easier if you're optimistic. If you're a pessimist, that's just hard work. I just don't have energy for that. And you have to work on it sometimes. So even an optimist has to work on it. But it is like a faith. It's a faith that leads to achievement. You gotta just sometimes use that optimism when you don't know, but you believe it's right. You gotta push through it. That's helped me a lot. I also had the ability to focus, sometimes to my detriment. I can really lock my brain onto something. And that's such a challenge for y'all now, because you have your phone, you have all these other things. You go on the internet, and you start going down some rabbit hole on the internet, and a half hour later you're reading something going, I don't know why I'm reading this, and I have no idea what I was even thinking when it started. Okay, that's not focus. That's drilling without a point. So when you're focusing, you really got to give concentration to things. You really got to look at them and spend time on it. But you got to focus on the right stuff. Focus on things you can control, you can influence. Don't focus on, something that's outside your control, outside of there. You're going to waste your energy and time. Go after what you can get. Focus on those things. Oh, there it goes. So, I worked on and continue to try to improve on my communication skills. When I say communication skills, it's not only just stepping in front of you folks and talking, it's emails, text, or whatever, because it's tough, and it always changes and it moves. One of the tricks to being a good communicator is shut up. Honestly, listen. Listen to something. You know what you're going to say. You write down a piece of paper, as I often do, and I'm going to do something, have it written down. I know what I want to talk about, but I don't know what they want to talk about. I need to listen to them. If I have it written down, then too, I can listen without thinking, this is my counterpoint. The other thing is, we don't do this enough as a society, is acknowledge the other person's feelings. Like someone writes me an irate email. I don't fire back and angry, oh, I'm mad at you too. I first acknowledge you understand their perspective. You may not agree with it, you may think it's a flawed perspective, but give them their due. Just acknowledge it. And say, well, I don't know how this happened, and go, I can see why you're upset about that. It makes sense. I would be upset too. But let me tell you a little bit more about the rest of the story, or whatever my point is. And I keep working on it, because we'll still have those knee-jerk reactions. We'll still want to pop them back. Here's another thing was on the quiz. What's the number one mistake made in communication? The belief that it has effectively happened. I don't know how many times I've given very clear instructions and something else happened, and I went back and I go, they did what I asked them to do. I just wasn't clear. Or I explained something from my perspective, the way I look at the world, versus their perspective, and they just didn't get it. They just went along and go, okay, yeah, I guess that's what you want to do. So always be careful of that. Don't assume because you've explained it, maybe told 10 times, that the communications happen. A lot of life is problem solving, going from problem to solution. So my mindset is, anytime a problem comes up, first thing I think is, there's a solution. I may not know the solution, but as long as you say, I walked into that room of opportunity, I'm going to turn on the light, I'm going to look around, I'm going to be curious, the problem solution is probably there. So you go into that mindset, all of a sudden a bunch of barriers get out of your way. Then you start thinking, wait, there's maybe not just one solution, there may be many viable solutions. So wow, now I got things to choose from. And then you kind of got to come to the, there's a practicality in life. And sometimes getting the very best solution is not the right solution. Sometimes a very good solution, and a timely solution, is much better than the perfect solution. So sometimes your perfection, you got to let go of it. The other thing you got to let go of is, it doesn't have to be your solution. You may think you know the answer, but it may not be the best answer to that situation. So you got to put your ego a little bit in check, especially if you're feeling very creative, like you go, yeah, but my idea is better. Maybe not. And sometimes letting someone else use their solution is better for the organization, better for them, and better moving forward. So, college, to make it more relatable to your situation today, where you are. My tool belt in college. So I took as many leadership roles, opportunities as I could. I was a resident advisor. I ran the rec center for the college. I taught some labs. I did extracurricular activities, like I was in softball, intramural softball, and a thing called broom ball. Anyone ever heard of broom ball in here? Okay. Well, it's a weird sport. It's like if you don't really play hockey, try to play hockey. You're out there on the ice rink. Instead of skates, you wear regular shoes. Instead of a stick, you have a broom, and you have a ball instead of a puck. It's kind of an absurd sport, but it's fun. And honestly, you grow up a lot during college. I mean, never 100%, and I really met a lot of people, a lot of diversity, and growing up in a very rural area.